and perhaps I'll be talking from the term of the communication network. First of all, the understanding of communication network. With the understanding of the communication network, why it is important that um, the protocols should be there has to be a synchronicity in the protocols which is not there right now, so we'll be touch basing on that topic. I'm putting myself on mute. I'll just gather the data set and we'll start in a while. If you have any questions, you can put your questions in the comment box and we'll look into it. Hi everyone. So we are going to talk about the communication network, and I see a few messages. Um, Hi. So somebody wants to make a thumbnail creator. Why don't you just send me a DM and somebody from my team will look into it. But thank you for that offer. Um, Perhaps we are going to talk about the modules and the submodules from the standpoint view of classification, and particularly these modules and submodules can be utilized for communication protocols. Now, when I talk about communication protocols, we did one experiment few months back, and I have been doing experiment on quite a lot of companies, individuals, because when we are doing experiments, we are not we the data set which we take into cognizance is the real data set as to how the actors or the candidates who are part of the experiments, how do they perceive, and whatever they are perceiving we are noting it down, and then we put into our small scale models the way we have developed. And from the standpoint view of coding, it is very simple. It's basically um, there are different embodiments. When I talk about, I like to use the word embodiment because I come with a very techno-legal kind of a background. I don't use facade words like scenario and all, because that is a very layman term which has been used for last 50, 60 years, because these folks never evolved. However, it has already been proved across different countries, across uh, different nations, that the cognitive ability of few folks because of the communication protocols has increased. The cognitive ability has increased to a point where the automatic classification can be done. So we have Julio. Okay, hi. Florida, that's nice. How's the weather condition in Florida? I mean, right now, first line of defense is already challenged, and the sad thing, even before I get to this, is uh, there was one news which stated that an African elephant died in Delhi Zoo. Perhaps this again has been discussed by various forums that in the name of signing treaties, animals should not be transferred from their habitat, because when you're taking somebody who is very used to their habitat to a new location, just because of whatever reasons, that is actually creating a chaos in the animal kingdom. Uh, Only few folks in the world are able to communicate in a manner with the animals, because there have been instances in recent past where even the caretaker is being, washed out and whatnot. So let's understand this cognitive ability, and let's prepare modules for the communication network which can be utilized to increase the cognitive ability for the right purpose. Because WHO, which is World Health Organization, a lot has been done. However, a lot is not being discussed. So we need to amplify the sustainable development goals in a manner whereby these things are discussed in details. I just got one of the research papers from ResearchGate which talked about gaslighting. So this gaslighting earlier was a very popular term in the political scenario, but in the recent past, this is becoming a menace, and this is becoming a household kind of a situation, because a lot of folks are now dependent on their other party for sustenance, and because of this, um, the different emotions which they have, it's letting them do some things which should not be done, because if somebody is touching somebody's stuff without their knowledge, that is not a good thing. So this is what gaslighting is all about. Gaslighting was very common stuff in the political domain, but we were just going through the data set. Particularly, I'm talking about the data set of the Indian scenario. If you go to the court cases, and particularly at the lower court level, you will see a lot of gaslighting happening from both the parties, and many a times it's not the misrepresentation, it is basically the intent, because when the intent of the party is wrong, gaslighting occurs. And when gaslighting is identified, then even the point of contention here is police is helpless because they can't do anything, and that is where DAO comes into play. DAO are supposed to be decentralized autonomous organizations, and there are zillion DAOs, but perhaps there are a lot of DAOs. What you need to do, if you really understand the internet, put your whatever problem statement is there on the internet, maybe utilizing any of the applications, and the DAOs at the back end will work on it. So they don't want to be named, but there's always some kind of coding happening at the admin end. And here, when I talk about DAOs, DAO is kind of a blockchain whereby you don't have a mediator. There is no mediator party, but after reviewing your case, it is done on smart contracts. Smart contracts are supposed to be, it's not that one particular language is used for drafting smart contracts. It's basically the coding in a manner where it is self-executed. So we analyze the data, we execute that, and in lieu of that, we don't charge anything. It's just if the data set is right, your work would be done. So that's what the main purpose of DAOs are. And of course, there are different kind of DAOs, because self-sustenance is possible till a certain extent, and many times when things are done, there's kind of a success fees which is charged, because once it is a success, then obviously the parties involved, they pay the fee structure. So that's a basic concept of DAO. These are based on trust, and trust only, because when there is a real problem, The solution is not based on fiat currency or bitcoins and other stuff, because cryptocurrency itself is one of the use case studies of the blockchain, but that's not the blockchain. Blockchain is particularly there was a call drop. Again, coming back to blockchain. Blockchain is techno-legal stuff. It's not that you need to have a legal degree, but you need to understand regulations very well. For that, you need to understand the basics of how regulations work and what should be the clauses, what should be a definition, and the like. Having said that, let's just get back to this particular application, which I will be talking about in terms of classification of the cognition from taking the viewpoint of EQ, which is supposed to be the emotional quotient. We have some IPCs also. I will be walking through that. Just give me a moment. If you have any questions, put your questions. I'll look into it. So, particularly when we're talking about regulations and from the cognitive ability for the modules and the submodules, it has so modules many times is the one of the words folks like to use is engine. So it is a rule-based engine. That means it is regulated or regulations are being updated. So perhaps we are utilizing these models to fetch data, but human intervention is there at any given point of time. The nodes are working on it, and this is something you cannot look. It's not for public, it is a private ledger. So the basic concept is not a concept. The reality or the skeleton of blockchain is something which is private, which not common man is supposed to know, or any third party is supposed to know. That is private ledger, and public is what you see. And let me tell you, what you see is not what is the reality is much different, because the whole thing of blockchain has been developed over the last 25 years. And what people think they are doing into blockchain, they are just not even scratching the surface. They are just trying to get into the first door, which is not going to open, because there are certain protocols which need to be followed. There are certain tasks which needs to be allocated, and once you are able to cross that border, then the next task is provided to you. And it needs not only the cognition of your historical data set. You have to be fit mentally, physically, and particularly your mental health has to be like in a way where if somebody is gaslighting you, you're able to identify that. Because most of the folks around you, and particularly the bonds, because there's a lot of research paper right now which is going into the AI stuff, and the main data set which is coming right away is people known to you are going to gaslight you. So be very careful from the point of view as to what you discuss with your peers, because many times when you think somebody is like your best friend or your best family member, those are the people who are going to ditch you, because that is how the world is. But in blockchain things are very different. So let's talk about this particular stuff. Okay, so natural language content. What is natural language content? Let's discuss about it. Natural language content is a very simple question which is answered by the candidate. So on the internet, at least whatever we are doing right now, because I'm heading a couple of stuff myself, so we are using the word candidate. We are not using the word user, we are not using the word master, we are not using the word slave, If anybody is coming onto this portal, which is internet, they are just candidates, and we are looking for good candidates. Um, so the data is gathered by giving them the questions. They need to answer it, and the best thing is when it is answered by, when you're using pencil, which you can always erase. Pen you cannot erase, so perhaps I'll allocate a pencil with a razor for the allocation to write your questions. um, then is rule matching. So what are the rules you have set? What are the periphery rules you have? And there's no good number of rules which has to be followed. We have already discussed in the past that Tesla laws and all Newton laws are not working. Why they're not working? Because the environmental conditions have changed. There has been a very massive drift in the environment factor as far as this planet is concerned. So let's first concentrate on this planet rather than creating another planet altogether, or trying to travel to another territory. That being said, so the matching is happening on linguistic rules. That doesn't mean that, if I select a particular song and somebody else is also listening to the same song, that would be activated. No, that doesn't happen. It is just when people are listening the same song in a control environment, what is important is to see how they react, because experiment is all to do with to noting down the reactions, and there has to be real reaction. Since we are living in such an artificial world, most of the folks, the reaction which they are giving are orchestrated. So it's kind of an artificial reaction which is not their true self. So one has to travel through different questionnaires, different, I would say, scenarios in terms of different embodiments, and everything has to go into the embodiment, not the scenario, because scenario itself is a negative connotation. We need to look into the positive connotation when you're working on the cognitive abilities. That being said, then the rule is activated, that is matching the linguistic rules. And dimension scoring. Now dimension scoring, again, a lot of folks are doing, color coding, numbers. What we are doing right now is personalization and being dynamic at the same point of time. Because if somebody has worked on the internet to make the internet better, that candidate has to be rewarded in whatever way it can be. That is what we are, pushing in always. In I would say at a 360-degree angle, if somebody is giving some kind of data which is really useful, the candidate or the enterprise has to be rewarded, and particularly from the standpoint view of cyber law. Then now there's a lot of work which is being done around emotion classification. Honestly, I'm of the opinion that we cannot give candidates or enterprises or companies the authority to nomenclature the candidate based on the emotion, because emotion is like a pendulum. And when I say pendulum, it is always in sync with the environmental factor. You will see some candidates, whether they are online or offline, they are, in their thinking mode. Because if somebody is solving a problem, that person has to orchestrate a lot of stuff. You need to see a lot of data, then only you will be able to understand and appreciate it. And there are times where candidates are providing their experience, the real experiences, and orchestrating something which they feel is right. And that is where we need to have these, determination step, which we cannot allow. I mean, just because you don't understand a particular environment, you cannot change the environment. We cannot allow a minority of owners of whatever they are to change the scenario or the embodiment depending upon whatever the factor they are taking into. And wrong data set and synthetic data set is not allowed. I'm a big fan of heat maps, because heat map is some kind of real data, because that's what is coming to my mind right now in terms of the understanding. in link with the input data. So heat map is a good data set because we need to go carbon negative so that a certain level of neutralization can happen at the end of what chaos is all about in the world right now.
वो कितना लोड लेती भी
Okay, so perhaps we are getting on to the okay, we I'll just sum it up. And summing up the classification, the tagging, which I believe is a good thing. So there's something called as ICT, there's something called as IoT, there's something called as sensor. So if I take the combined umbrella of this understanding, which is supposed to be how internet is connected to the candidates, having emotions, without emotions, objectified in whatever they can, because certain level of human intervention always has to be there when the determination step is being orchestrated, because at the determination step we need to have at least different minds from different environmental factor coming together and solving that issue at large. It's kind of a dumbbell strategy. So I'll perhaps go with the top level of the dumbbell because then things become easy for us to work around. Okay, I'm a big fan of body parameters, so I have my devices. Okay, right now it's, if I have to show, I don't mind showing it uh, because it's just a data set. So the current set says that BPM is 110. My BPM goes to 180 also. I'm still very much alive because I'm a master trainer in mixed martial arts, body wide, body balance from Les Mills, and a couple of other things, right from the framework of couple of others. So I have loads of, like, apart from whatever degrees I have in my qualifications, I'm very well trained with the fitness industry, and that is where I utilize my core expertise, and I have developed my core. I don't think from brain, I think from the core. So activation of the core is very important. People who are able to activate their core and utilize it for daily purpose, these are the individuals who are some kind of candidates for the blockchain industry. Because if your core is not activated and if you're thinking from the brain, then there's kind of a, brain which gets, like, today I was just going through some data set where it was written, um, brain mutton curry, it was 500. So that is what the value of brain is. People who are eating brain is 500. So the point I'm trying to make here is, um, you don't need to think from the brain, you need to think from the core. And when you start thinking from the core, that is where the magic happens. That being said, we need to have integration of input output variables. For that, we can utilize G06F1 slash 1684. Then we have for video and speech to text. For the semantic understanding of the video scenes, we can utilize G06V20 slash 41. And for the speech to the text, what we can use is G10L15 slash 26. Now, these are the taggings which you need to identify. Now, that doesn't mean that whatever is being tagged, you just, run through your algorithms. No, you need to have the human intervention, understand the framework, and then only utilize it for any of the, I would rather say, developing the modules, and particularly when you're talking about some kind of blockchain use case study. Then, so digital health is being discussed a lot. I'm getting a lot of DMs, and obviously we have been working in the longevity sector for so long. And perhaps why my longevity factors are at a very positive and at a higher connotation, it is because of the not only the lifestyle changes. I won't say I have a very active or a good eating habit, but I'm very well aware about my understanding of how I can utilize whatever I can in the best capacity, because that is what I train myself every day. If I have to take 24 cross 7, somebody said, God bless you. Thank you so much. Same to you. Perhaps in this particular case, we are talking about selling your data for digital health. Honestly, I don't think it's going to work in the short term. If you're selling your data for digital health, particularly, let's take an example of blood. Now, when blood is drawn from the veins and when the candidates is in a FOMO, or if the candidate is in control of the emotions, you will see different results. So the point I'm trying to make here is even this blood parameter, we are just taking that in terms of oxygen, and I'm not getting into the techno-legal language right now, but very simply, if I have to explain, it would be, if you take the blood, okay, one is fasting pp, that is one thing. Then the other thing is, perhaps if somebody's blood is taken when the person is listening to music, and certain kind of music, is not that Beethoven or those will work. I have tried that also because I've done a lot of experiment on myself. Sometimes I feel sad that why did I do onto me, because it has its repercussions. But now I'm very careful as to the physical part of doing the experiments, and generally I'll rather take the results from the online world where I see whatever the results are, rather than when you are taking into onto yourself, there are repercussions. Because I remember after the lockdown, I took some OT, whatever over the counter stuff which was patented in India. And that time I didn't realize it, but it had some kind of LSD kind of effect. And it took me a while to come back to normal conditions because that impact was high. However, when I took and I was feeling dizzy, I looked into the data set and then I realized I should have studied a little bit more before, the compilation. So the point I'm trying to make here is even all these Ayurvedic stuff which is there on the market, and if that is being patented, that has repercussions because everybody is different. You cannot be giving the same dosage to everyone. And perhaps Ayurveda and Unani is not the mainstream medicine. There's a reason for it, because the technical knowledge which was there with the historical data set, that is not being written in the scriptures, and it is just a standard composition which is being taken, and we are taking standard composition, it is going to have an impact. And standard composition, that is why you'll see when you're taking allopathic medicine, or you can take somebody's advice to take tablets and all, it is said that you have to consult your doctor maybe on a weekly basis, because uh, everybody is not going to react in a similar manner. So for the longevity, you have to take external supplements. Food habits should be good. Honestly speaking, if you ask, my food habits really bad. I don't take breakfast. I'm just taking one proper meal in a day. But that's how I have trained myself, and I have been okay over the years. And there was a lot of intake of water in my bodies, because that is one good thing. Because I understand biochemistry very differently because I've studied it thoroughly without the internet. Campbell, I read it like a Bible during my masters, and I scored very good marks. So marks doesn't talk about how well you are in the subject, but the point I'm trying to make here is there's something called as Krebs cycle. There's something called as calcium potassium pump in the body, and of course, water has a role to play. Like in the initial years when I had increased the intake of water, so obviously with there has to be balance between the kidney and the liver. And initially, because it was new to the body system, it took some while to accustom it. And now I'm customary to this because it's almost more than 1 decade that but yes, when I'm in office, I'm not able to take that much of water. My coffee content is high, but if I ritually, it's not that I'll take those tumblers which are available in the offline world, and people are carrying those tumblers because they have been told by their fitness gurus that to carry the tumbler to drink water. Not that case. I drink water when I feel thirsty, but it is always good, at least to, I would rather say, the data set which states for the females, it should be 1 to 2 liters of water. I have gone to a very high limit and I'm still okay with that. But obviously, anything which is in excess has a little bit of impact. Short term or long term, that is different. But water per se is kind of a cleanser, and the cleanse itself is able to clean a lot of stuff. And of course, then you have your rituals of meditation. Doesn't mean that people do chanting and all that. Doesn't suit my persona. So having said that, this is what I wanted to discuss. So selling digital health, I'm not very convinced on that, but still we have this tagging, which is G16H 50/20, which is computer aided diagnosis. And the companies which are active in this arena are Philips, IBM Watson Health, which is basically looking into the emotion score. Oh my goodness. Okay, now this marker. When you talk about markers, right? Um, I I agree to disagree on this word depression, because depression is created because of gaslighting. Whether you take political analysis, that's the best analysis. I mean, every candidate is good in whatever they are doing because of the environmental factor. They feel like, okay, today I'm not doing well because of whatever the reason is. Tomorrow I'll do well. So I'll rather say just early habitual marker rather than putting this thought, because this thought itself is a gaslighting thought that somebody is depressed, because a lot of operators in the world are trying to push this into the periphery of the mindset. And let me tell you, Modi ji is against this. The best thing always he says, say no to obesity. Now there's one sector of the society which says all sizes are welcome. Excuse me, how can you welcome all sizes? Obesity is killing the uh, entirety, because the body is not working properly. Obesity will never help. In our times, or rather I would say 1 decade ago, you won't see so many obese people. Now every just because of these pizzas and burgers and whatnot, people are getting into this obese lifestyle. So avoid that. Okay, anything else? Let's complete it now. Okay, if I have to select two classes which are good enough to start the training process, it would be G06F 40/30. Another one is G10L 25/63. It's basically the hardware, how you use the hardware as a wearable. And what is important here is to have control over your own emotions. For that, every person is different. I'm not a very big fan of these applications where they tell now you stay quiet, now you do this, because again it's a control environment. What is important is every candidate is different, so that every candidate needs to find their own nirvana. And once you find your own nirvana, then work around it. That's how you will be your better version in whatever your time capacity is. And that is where if people start looking into that direction, I think that's a good direction, and DAOs are there to help that or facilitate the whole process. Thank you for watching this out. Send DMs, I'll look into it. Loads of DMs are there. I will see what I can do with that. Have a great, great, great day ahead.